All right, guys, we're rolling. It's been a minute. I am just gonna show this sucker on Twitter right now. We are live. We are live. This is gonna be a good show. This is gonna be a good show. Good show. Hold on one second, guys, because I gotta spread this stuff to Twitter. Gotta spread it to Twitter, so all you guys can jump on and see the good stuff. One second. One second here. All right. Let's just give it a second here for people to jump on now that we've got it on. Now that we got it on the Twitter timeline. This is the first one we're doing. So usually I cut my finger. See this? Almost cut my finger off trying to cut some ham. Happens sometimes. This is the first showing we're doing that's not going to be on Twitter directly. So very important to be pumping this sucker at the moment. Pumping it so that people will get on YouTube, get the notifications for the YouTube live, that they'll be able to see it. Let's see here. Let's just let's check it out. If you're here, if you're watching, go hit me up with that. Leave a comment. Leave a comment if you guys are watching right now. Yeah, there we go. We got people jumping on. I think I'm gonna have to be more punctual with these, because if I'm not punctual enough and we're not just sitting on the TL, there's gonna be an issue with people showing up. But look, guys, you know, we gotta improvise. We gotta change things up. All right. So I'm gonna start getting going with the wine here. So we've got 3 different types of wine this time around: Piemonte Cortese, Gavi, and Longue Chardonnay. Okay, now so the reason that I picked these ones up was simple. Because Piemonte, Cortese, and Gavi, I didn't actually know this, but they are the same grape. Now, Gavi is just the more prestigious region. I didn't know that, actually. I thought that, I guess I was thinking that Gavi was the name of the grape. So mixing it up this time with that. And I want to see what it's like to have just a general Piemonte Cortese versus just the regular Gavi, and to see what is the difference between the two of these things. Is there a difference between them? How big of a difference is it? And I threw the Longue Chardonnay in just because I had it and I didn't know where else to pair it. Was there anything else that I could put it in? So we are going to see. We're going to see how this works out. But so the Piemonte Cortese, starting off with this is very, very, it smells very simple. There's a lot of mineral quality to it, but it's really just bright, like sharp fruit. That's what I'm getting. Very, very tart. Very, very, very tart. A second. Very, very tart. 1 second. 1 second. Just trying to gin it up. You know, it's interesting. On Twitter, we get like tons and tons of people when we're live on there. But just doing it on YouTube, it's not, you know, I think people want to see it going on. They want to see it going on live. They want to see it on the timeline, and they click on the video while it's going live on the timeline. You know, we're just trying to make this work. We're trying to build it up. So it takes some time, guys. I appreciate you bearing with me as we do this. So the Piemonte Cortese, good, very simple, very linear. I'm going to take another taste of it. It's a little creamy, actually. So I think they had a little bit of malolactic in that, but it really is what you get. It's got a finish, but there's really not any complication of flavor here. It's a good wine. It's a little steely. And let's try the Gavi. I'm interested to see how they compare with each other, given the same grape. So this one's a little bit brighter on the nose. And you can even see from the color. Well, the color is actually about identical. So the color is pretty much identical. But you can see from the nose, it's a bit brighter. So you can tell this is definitely the same grape. The Gavi has a little bit more of a lift to it, and maybe the fruit's a little bit brighter, whereas the Cortese is a little bit more simple. But they're both pretty simple, to be honest. The Gavi is a little bit better. It's a little bit better, but it's not like as drastically different as I would have expected, or as I think a lot of other people might have expected. That's interesting. And the last one here, the Chardonnay, I expect to be very different, but we're talking, it's still all grown in the same area. It's all Piemonte. Langhe is a prominent region in Piemonte. So this one, like many Chardonnays, has been oaked. So you get that immediately on the nose. Or does it? Maybe I was getting something else, because you don't get any of that on the palate. There's like a little bit of a breadiness to it, some yeast. It's very thin. It's very thin. So I'm not actually so big on this one. I'm not so big on this one. I'm not sure that it was really cheap either. So I definitely prefer the Corteses and the Gavis. Anyway, let's get into the meat of this. So one of the things I wanted to talk about here, and this is important. This is an interesting topic, and I've really tried to, I guess you could say, I've been thinking about writing about it, but I'm going to give you guys a teaser with it first, because this is a very it's been on my mind for a while. Let's say it's a very esoteric topic, but it's been on my mind. So if you listen to the red pill stuff, what you're going to get, I'm glad you were able to catch me live too. I mean, I feel like it's like, doing a show to an empty room. We're used to consistently minimum 20 people in here, often more like 30, 40. So it's kind of weird on my part. You can maybe see I'm like trying to get used to, it's like you're kind of starting over a little bit and you're talking to nobody. So I appreciate the comment. I appreciate you guys being back. And I know I'm late also. People may have been waiting. I was on a walk with my wife, and then, we haven't had a chance to see each other today because it was a very busy work day on my end. Work a lot on the weekends. So the black and white magic of dating. Okay. And so how this works, if you read a lot of the red pill stuff, you'll understand that, this darker side of female nature, and you'll understand that this darker side of female nature, how are you supposed to deal with it? How do you get women attracted? But if we distill this down, what does the red pill teach? What is a lot of these sort of darker game techniques, and what do they teach? What they teach is that women have this part of them that acts out based on trauma. Okay. The red pill is basically showing you how a traumatized woman acts. A woman who doesn't know herself, maybe, is a more expansive way to say it. So they don't know how these women act very impulsively, instinctually, you might say, right? So this is important, and it's important for this reason. These women will burn guys as a result of their trauma, as a result of them not knowing themselves and not knowing where these darker impulses come from. So what happens, right? What happens is that guys who take the red pill understand that if they just act like nice or whatever, the girls are going to burn them. But if they actively do things to trigger a woman's trauma, then they can get her addicted to him. They can get her to respond to him, and to respond to him sexually. So a great example of this is the sort of never commit and keep pushing her away. What this does to a woman is that you find a woman, and let's say she's got, like many women, abandonment issues. Okay. Because you have women who maybe they have issues with their father. Also, let's remember that when the feminine is not developed, you could say, women are not able to define themselves. So they'll define themselves based on what society, what their group thinks, right? But they'll also define themselves romantically, and their sense of am I loved by whether or not they have a guy, which is why you have this phenomenon of branch swinging, right? Where women will jump from guy to guy. Okay. Now, what happens when you as a man do some of these techniques and you pull back, on a girl who's gone after you, what happens is that she starts to chase, right? And that's one of the big things in the red pill. It's like you want to get a girl to chase you. But what this actually is, if you distill it down, what you're doing is you're basically triggering a woman's trauma. And you actually might be re-traumatizing her. So you're going to give her more trauma, poke that bear, and then that creates a reaction that gets her drawn towards you. This is a form of black magic. Now, I mean, those of you who know me know I'm very much in the esoteric. And this is an important point because what black magic is energy harvesting from others. And a lot of game and a lot of seduction is focused on basically black magic techniques, right? And you can see it very clearly when it's like a girl has this sort of negative reaction, but she goes after you. Well, you have power over her, right? That's what you do. You have power over her. And what I think is of issue is that everybody talks about this as if it's the only way to be a leader. It's the only way to get girls. The only way to get girls is to traumatize them. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why the red pill doesn't work on every woman. A woman who's been more integrated, has gone through stuff, she's going to be aware of her shadow side. She's going to be aware of her trauma, and she won't respond to red pill tactics. So it's one of the things the red pill will focus only on women who have already been traumatized or who are too young to have effective defenses. Okay. By the way, I'm not passing judgment necessarily because, part of this is a learning process. And some of us, I certainly did some of these things and I grew from it. And a lot of women they're co-creating this traumatized dynamic. They're asking to be traumatized, right? Which is why some other guy will do it if you didn't do it. I'm not justifying it. The opposite. I'm just trying to explain it. And I don't want anybody who's done this stuff to feel shame. But it's important to understand that although women respond to this, a lot of guys, if a guy is more positively polarized, you could say, and while a lot of most nice guys are full of shit, a lot of guys who default to nice guy behavior without knowing exactly what they're doing, they go that direction because they do want to connect with a woman on a healthier level. There's a lot of covert contracts and stuff and bullshit. And a lot of nice guys aren't very honest with themselves about what they really want from women. But this is important. They will, how do I put this? They don't really resonate with the red pill. And this is why you do have this phenomenon of guys spitting up the red pill, or you could say trying to negotiate with it. Hey, people might say that I'm one of those guys, that I tried to negotiate with the red pill. I'm purple pill. Well, I'm not negotiating with the red pill necessarily. I'm just not convinced that way of operating, that you can't have a great relationship with a girl, you can't get girls unless you fuck them up more. I don't believe that. I never believed it. I did find value in the fact that it was exploring how women do respond to trauma and how they respond to trauma sexually. For instance, hypersexual women, trauma response, right? Okay. So where are we going with this? It's the underline. This is a black magic technique. And a lot of guys who even actually are very successful with getting women using these red pill tactics, and I was one of them, we don't like it. And we eventually start to feel like we are becoming someone we don't like by doing it. And so where does this end up? I actually think some of the MGTOW movement is based on this, actually comes from good intentions, that they don't want to do fucked up things to women. So they're just like, fuck women, because that's all women respond to. But the thing is, this is wrong. This is incorrect. This isn't how it works. Okay. You can take the left-hand path. You can engage in black magic to try to get women, or you can take the right-hand path and engage in white magic. Now, what is white magic? If you work to integrate your own trauma and you understand it, you can then when you're with a woman, you can see her and you can see her trauma points, but rather than actively go out and try to damage them further and push on those points, you can call them out and attempt to heal her. This is so fucking powerful. It's so powerful. And I wish that people appreciated it. And I think one of my big missions is to try to show guys this entirely type of game. I called it psychological game, but I don't actually think this is the correct way to describe it. It's really like it's just white magic versus black magic. That's really what it is. It does require a different level of understanding, because to operate in some level of black magic with women, what you would have to do, you have to understand where their trauma is. And there can be, and I'm not going to say it's necessarily always simplistic, because you can manipulate women in many ways to try to get them to want you. But you have to understand yourself much more in order to engage in this sort of white magic approach. But what happens is that you get the girl, you get her actually to love you more than anybody else. Ever. Talk about alpha widowing. Ever. I talk about this a lot in my masterclass, which you guys, if you haven't picked it up, I recommend it. But this is a really, really important thing to understand. Okay? If you can help a woman to heal, if you can lead in her development of herself and her healing process, that's the role you play with her, then she's going to love you. She's going to love you, and she's going to want to sleep with you. You're not going to be this beta. You understand that? Because you have a lot of power in the sense that you are the person who understands her more than anybody else. So she's able to drop down her walls, and increase vulnerability in that sense begins to lead to increased vulnerability and openness in sex. So intimacy starts to go and take off. The sex is different. People have talked about this actually, and what they don't completely realize is that they're somewhat describing a phenomenon when they talk about how, there's a really, really kinky kind of darker kind of sexuality, which is very hot. That a lot of that is triggered by black magic. And then you have the very deep, connected, passionate, and that's more connected by white magic. The thing here, and I'll speak personally, is that as time's gone on, a lot of the black magic stuff has resonated less. That kind of sex has resonated less over time, which is interesting, because I know years ago it was very, very erotic, very, very exciting. And I think it has to do with consciousness. And I'll explore it more as time goes on. But I wanted to give you guys a taste of this stuff. It's cutting edge shit, to be honest. It's very cutting edge. Because it is really, when it comes to engaging with the opposite sex, when it comes to establishing connection and attracting the opposite sex, there are actually two completely different schools. There actually are two completely different schools. And they've been so muddled. And I think because of the climate and because of the kind of shit that goes on in the macro, the emphasis has always been on the black magic approach, with some slight exceptions that maybe only go a little bit towards the white magic. We are going to show you guys over time how exactly to do this on a white magic perspective. But here's the thing, guys, that path, it takes a lot more inner work, because you have to generate the energy internally and radiate it outwards towards her and then help her to build it up versus taking it from her. But you lose the games and you get the connection you're looking for. So big stuff for a lot of you guys, because I know you guys are tired of this shit. You wouldn't be following me if you actually like fucking with women like that. All right, so let's go to these questions. Drop into these questions. Hey Pat, question for the Periscope. You talk a lot about women being attracted to male energy. From my perspective as a male, there are different types of energy you give off, whether that's striving and ambitious. Other times you're more serene and happy, other times sexual, etc. What type of energy do you refer to, and what are the best ways and mindsets to build your energy up? Thanks. Very good question. That's a very good question. It's actually a very complicated question. And it's one of those things that I might have to think a little bit more about to differentiate, but I'm going to give you guys something off the bat right now. So, as I mentioned a little bit ago, women will struggle to define themselves on a lower level. They'll struggle to define themselves against men, without men, let's put it that way. Women are also, as bearers of life, they're looking for the man who has the most energy. But most of all, they're looking for men with energy. They're not going to sleep with a guy if he doesn't have energy, right? They're not going to do it. The only women who do that are completely helpless. And you can feel those kind of interactions. Now, what I'm about to say here may not be technically correct because women do generate their own energy. But male energy is, let's just say it expresses itself more overtly, indirectly. It's much more of a penetrative energy, okay? And so there are different, you could say, aspects to this energy, and you could say within yourself, within your energetic system, that different parts of your body, if they're shut down, so if your sort of lower chakras, you could say, are shut down, you're not going to give off as much sexual energy. You might give off a lot of energy, but it'll come from your head. Okay? Fundamentally, though, we give off an overall sort of energy pattern, an energy volume. Okay? People have referred to this as light quotient, which I think is interesting. It's an interesting term, versus intelligent quotient, you have light quotient. And I agree with it. I think that you can tell that certain guys, you can do things, by the way, to build up your energy, but there are certain people who have more energy than others, just naturally. There are people that everyone notices, that people remember. Okay, people you forget don't generally have much of a light quotient because they don't impact the field. You remember people who impacted your field, right? That's how it happens. So, a lot of these things you're describing, though, when you say striving and ambitious, other times more serene and happy, other times sexual, some of this has to do with where the energy is coming out of your body and where the blockages are, but some of this stuff also has to do with your level of consciousness. So, for instance, someone could be giving off a lot of anger. That's a specific frequency, right? Specific frequency you're giving off when you're angry all the time. And you could say that ambition, if it's an angry ambition, maybe it has some of that flavor. Somebody who's serene, if they're genuinely serene, like genuinely chill, and they're happy with everything, they're genuinely happy with everything, that's rare. People are like that, but that's rare. That could be considered almost 5D. But a lot of people who are chill are actually more avoidant and shut down. So some of this stuff you have to feel out. You have to feel it out, because some people who are really chill and serene aren't giving off anything. And where you might be giving things off in a given day depends on where your own frequency is, which depends on a lot of things. It could be the stars. It could be the energy of the planet. It could be what you ate. It could be what happened to you. There's a lot of different levels to this stuff. And also your disposition, right? So, but that's a good question. I'm going to think more about it. If I can give a more precise response, maybe I'll write about that. All right. Hot as fuck outside right now. It's crazy. Okay. When your girlfriend dated a very attractive and successful guy, even famous years ago, how do you handle being normal compared to this guy? Lots of insecurities behind this, not good enough feeling. I've worked with a client who had this exact problem. His girlfriend's ex-boyfriend was a special forces, football, very kind of important person, you could say. Here's the thing, though. Okay, so there's two aspects to this question, two answers to this I'm going to give. The first is she broke up with him for a reason, right? She broke up with him for a reason. This is important. Now, maybe, and this is a little bit more difficult, this is a little bit more cautious, did he break up with her? You have to be a little bit more cautious if this was the case, okay? Because if he broke up with her, then maybe there is an element of her pining for him. Maybe she's not with him because he left her, and that creates a vulnerability. All right. We have to be careful about women who have been traumatized, right? Who have had black magic run on them, because a lot of times those women, it'll create some sort of trauma piece that they'll seek to relive, and they'll get drawn back to their abuser. This is very, very important. Rudy, I'm going to get to your question at the end. Just not to lose my train of thought right now. So this is so it depends on that. That's a major issue. If he broke up with her and she talks about him and she talks about these things, she may actually be alpha widowed in the black magic sense, where she's still drawn to him. Now, if that wasn't the case and she left him, or it had a very clear ending and then moved on, again, she's with you now. She left him. She moved on from him. People who are famous, fame is amazing for getting women. Fame is amazing for getting attention. Fame doesn't mean fucking anything when it comes to whether or not you are a good person to be with. Actually, it may be inversely correlated with being in a healthy relationship. She knows what he was actually right, and you don't. You're projecting actually your own fantasy onto him. She's not. She's with you because she knows who he actually was. That's why she left. So, but the other thing here is that you're comparing yourself externally. So what is it about yourself that you're repressing? If we ever externalize and we ever fantasize outward about being somebody else, every single time we do that, it's because we are not feeling like we can express ourselves. We can't be ourselves. So what that means in practice is that you are not expressing what you need on a regular basis, not necessarily just with her, but with life in general. So you need to start doing that more. If you were able to express who you were, you would not fantasize about being somebody else. You would never do that. You would never do it. I don't want to be anybody else in the world. I don't want to be anybody else in the world. I understand that people are doing maybe objectively better than me. I'm not doing badly at all, but other people may be doing objectively better than me. It doesn't make any difference at all. I would never trade places with somebody else. I love my life. But I love my life because I am free to express myself in my life. If I couldn't express myself, and that's usually in almost every circumstance, unless you live in a totalitarian regime, and we're not there yet, it's about you and guilt, shame, programming that you have that won't let you go out and do it. So that's the not good enough feeling. All right. Okay, so as you know, I've been in a long distance relationship for 6 months, and it has been working really well. We see each other every 2 weeks, and the more time passes, it gets better. But I've been I've been having some sort of issue with her parents. Uh-oh. Context. They are very strict Christians who don't support sex before marriage. I didn't know that until my girlfriend told me when we completed 3 months of dating. When we traveled together to their beach house, they put me to sleep in this room separated from her. That's when she told me that. When she comes to my place, she sleeps in my room with me, but tells her parents that she stays with my sister. Anyway, somehow they found out that we sleep together and have regular trips together. Even I didn't know that she hadn't told them about it. So the situation right now is that they're very cold with me, not treating me as well as they used to, and I don't like this. I feel like talking to them and open things up. I mean, I want to tell them that I really want something serious with their daughter, way beyond than just having sex with her, which is true. I plan on getting married, but I don't want to rush things up because of this issue. So what would you do in this situation? What would you advise me to do? They don't even want to have me on their place anymore. My girl fully supports everything I do in this situation. I mean, she doesn't interfere in anything I do and told me she agrees with every decision I make. Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinion about this, man. Thanks as only. God bless. Okay, great question. I think that the real thing here to mention, okay, this is a very old school, and I respect it, way of parents, especially when they handle their daughters. Okay, it's a very old school way. I remember when I was younger, my parents wouldn't let people who were just dating stay in the same room. That's amazing, actually, how much things have changed, because I think back even just like 10, 15 years ago and how different it was. Um, in the first decade of the 2000s, it was a different thing, even in America, with a lot of families. Now that's changed so much. It's just amazing how propaganda can change culture. It's very interesting. So anyway, but this is old school situation. I'll be very direct with you. They are not going to accept you unless they are sure that you're moving forward with her. And they are not going to warm up to you unless, um, even if you say that you want things to go forward, that may give them a little bit to work with. That'll do something. You definitely have to have a conversation with them. I mean, you definitely have to even have a conversation with them. Well, yeah, it's not even old school. I mean, it's kind of funny with that, because it's not yeah, it's really more like not doing that is extremely new. I think that's the way to put it. Not caring about that is extremely new. They just want to make sure that their daughter um, isn't going to be shamed, isn't going to be humiliated by you, violated by you. You don't have to propose to her immediately, but I would ask yourself, if you really do see this going forward, you should make that intention very clear to the father. And while I respect that you don't want to rush things, and I wouldn't rush things, I think that you need to have that intention put out there. You need to talk to the father about it and say, look, this is what I want. The thing is, you need to figure out when you want it, because he's going to ask you, well, why haven't you done it yet? And you better have a good answer for that if you don't want to have it immediately. And the reality is that you probably won't have a perfect answer for it. So you have to really think about, you guys have this thing going on right now. How long are you going to let it go on for? I don't want you to rush it necessarily, but everything's been really great. Sounds like an awesome girl. I'm familiar with your story. So what is the end game? Her family, unless they see indications of you being serious with her, are going to treat you as if you are a predator, basically. They're not going to want to acknowledge you. And the last thing you want to do is you want to pull your girlfriend away from her parents, because then they'll really, really hate you. So the move here is to have that conversation. And frankly, I mean, you guys are going to continue to see each other and have sex. Let's be honest here. And as you should, that's your prerogative to do that. But in circumstances with them, you want to be very respectful of it. You definitely want to keep it away from them. You definitely want to give them some plausible deniability, and you want to show them that you're respecting them, so that they around them, you're never going to try to do anything, basically, unless you guys can really get away and sneak a quickie in or something like that. I know this is a lot of guys will be like, why are you doing it? But if you actually intend to move forward with this girl, you got to show that respect to the parents. Just got to do it. All right. Let's see how many more. We got 3 more here. We got the one in the chat. Yeah, we can do that. We can manage. All right. Hey, Pat, how things going? So I've been dating quite a bit, but one thing I always struggle with is how to make sex really exciting the first time you smash a new chick. I feel like also struggle with my own sexual insecurities. It's never bad. They never complain, but I want to blow their mind. That's my question. Thanks, Brodo. Well, this is all an internal issue. Look, you want to blow their mind. Why? Why do you care? I mean, I understand why you care. I'm not stupid. I'm stupid. Like, obviously, as a guy, you like the validation of it. Feels good to be a sex god. Cool. But I mean, if this is going on to this degree, where you need a stranger make sure she's sober, right? What you need to understand with this, right? You got to understand with it is that this entire thing, it's probably making you worse in bed because you're looking for her to respond a certain way to feel better about yourself. It may not be what you're looking for, but the question is sort of barking up the wrong tree. I'm not the guy to talk to about how you can, what you want a penis pump? What do you want to do? You want to jack it up a bit? What is the intention here? The intention here is really, how do you stop? It should be, how do you stop thinking that every single interaction you have with a woman is a performance? That's the question that needs to be addressed here. How do you stop every interaction you have with a woman from being a performance? Because I'll tell you that this mindset that, like, I gotta blow her mind, it's actually impressive that you haven't had serious performance issues. Because a lot of guys, that's exactly what happens when they put that kind of pressure on themselves. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy hooking up with the girl. Make it more about you and less about her, and giving her this kind of experience. You will give her an experience if you're enjoying yourself. But the second you start to really, think about these things, it's like, this is never going to end. You could be sleeping with multiple girls a day, and that program will still be there. Like, well, did I not perform well enough for this one girl? How can I make it even bigger? The final thing I'll say on this topic of sex is that you're not going to give her probably the best experience of her life just as a random hookup. It just almost never happens like that. This is intuitively true, and the data is extremely clear in it, that people have the best sex in relationships. The best sex in relationships. So don't even put that on you to, like, make a random girl, like, you blew her mind, she's gonna need it, blah blah. I mean, yeah, be good in bed. It's a good aim, but don't put it on such a high level that this has to happen. This has to occur. There's no reason for you to have sexual insecurities if you're hooking up with girls like this. It's really, like, focus on your own pleasure, focus on your own enjoyment. Hate if it comes across the wrong way, but I mean, it's not really about her. It's really about you. It should be about you if you're even in that situation. So, all right. A little sip time. How can guys maintain a fun, positive vibe that's attractive to women while going through a multi-year dry spell? Well, why are you going through a multi-year dry spell? Maybe that's the bigger question here. But fun, positive vibe. I mean, do you need to be having sex to have a fun, positive vibe? I'm not being naive. I mean, obviously, doing that is going to feel better. It's going to make it maybe feel a little bit easier. You're going to feel more fun with women. But, I mean, there's a lot more to life. And so what have you been doing during this multi-year dry spell? What have you been creating? What can you bring women into? What can you bring women into? What can you bring this woman into your life? How can you make it so that it's fun to be around you? So I guess the question, it's like, I'm thinking about the question, and I guess why I'm a little bit perplexed is that it's just not all about sex. I mean, think back when you're like 16. A lot of 16-year-olds haven't had sex. So does that mean you can't be fun and create a positive vibe? That's just a completely different thing. It's a completely different thing. So detach yourself from this idea that you're not a fun person unless you're fucking girls. That's a mind virus. It's not a real program. You will sleep with girls when you have fun. When you create this sort of, and the vibe comes from you enjoying your life. You doing fun things. Bring her into it. That's it. That's it. It's really that simple, guys. It's really that simple. Have fun, enjoy yourself, enjoy life. Okay? And then invite women into it. That's it. Be willing to talk to them and say, I'm doing this. Why don't you come with me? That's how you build a social circle too. You create the energy by enjoying yourself, by enjoying life yourself. That's how you do it. Some good stuff in the comments here. Some very good stuff in the comments here. All right, we got last one on the list here. All right, let me get another sip. What do you, girl who wants to figure out the grammar here. Your girl wants to fulfill the role of a modern woman and be financially independent, but also wants the traditional style of motherhood, but constantly flips between the two. So what do you do if she's flipping between the two? Okay, well, feminism's a program. So she's flipping between the two partially because of the program, because feminism is telling women that they can't be happy unless they're working, unless they're independent. And here's why it's a program. I want to talk about these inversion programs. It's not actually what a lot of guys in the manosphere say, which is that women don't really want to work. Women don't really want a job, so it's all fake. That's not really what's going on here. Because actually, a woman who's more integrated very often does have something she loves to do, right? She very often will do something impactful. Maybe she'll build something because she's integrated some of her masculine energy. So this is important. I'm saying this stuff because a lot of women do not prefer to go back to work, don't want to work, and they're maybe more natural with it, but it's not necessarily the case, and you don't want to box them in with it. So she's slipping between the two. Maybe what you can, don't try to box her in yourself. Let her, I think that it's very empowering for people to give them choices. If you're the kind of guy who says, you're not going to work, I'm going to make the money. Well, I mean, look, maybe she likes that and that's fine, but you're doing very low level stuff here because you're telling her what she has to do. Why not just let her choose to do what she wants to do, but incentivize her to choose what's of the highest service to herself? Most women will prefer, especially when their children are young, to not work. Especially if they have multiple children, they'll prefer that. So let her do that. Say, hey, it's your choice if you want to do it. I support you either way. Well, when you do that, you actually empower her to do what she wants to do. And you can tell her and say, you don't have to work if you don't want to. You also don't have to not work. If you're leading correctly, what that'll do is start to create the space to pull back some of the programming, right? And I think you can also contribute to saying this. I don't know what her job is. If her job is some sort of corporate job, she works for somebody else, you could say, look, what I want is a very deep and connected relationship with you. I want to have a happy family. I want you to be happy most of all. This job doesn't make you happy. Maybe in the future you can do something for yourself that'll make you happy. But and this is actually the big issue in a relationship when a woman works for like a bigger company. The big issue with this is that then she, especially if you yourself have more autonomy, is that she is then at the behest of the company. And then by default, if you don't have the proper frame in particular, she'll think the company is the more of the authority than you are. And when I say authority, I mean this in the sense that she will value the company's needs more than your needs. You have to be very, very clear about these kind of things. What kind of relationship are you guys trying to create? You have to lead that conversation. She may not find, a lot of women really don't like their jobs. Some do, but most really don't like their jobs. But they also don't like being bored. They don't like feeling constrained. So the more choice you can give a woman, actually, I do think it's better because you create less of an emotional backlash. And so what you could get is that by empowering her to make these choices and really helping her to find, leading her through her own emotions and helping her to see, okay, is this what you want? Is this really what you want? Maybe it is what she wants for a little bit. Cool, let her do it. Let her do it consciously and be aware of it. And then maybe she decides she doesn't want it anymore, and then you help her with that. And then she takes care of the kids, and in the future, she moves on, right? She moves on. Yeah, it is interesting. This comment here: Eastern cultures usually work regardless of wealth. I will make this point. I will make this point because this is really interesting. We have such a conception today that women aren't supposed to work and women never worked, and Vivian adds to this very well, talking about what things really are work. We have this completely absurd view of women, and I actually think it's deliberate that it's put that way because it feeds the feminism narrative. Like women have been, and actually the people who are most into feminism are women who came from these sort of classes. It's very interesting. You could say maybe it's a psychological reaction for them, but these classes start with the very waspy upper class, upper middle and upper class, where the women weren't really working. They didn't work. They were bred for marriage to high level men who mostly themselves maybe didn't really work, who just had estates and had to operate in certain social categories, right? If you watch any of the, it's a genre that's out of control. I forget that I forget it. It was so popular just a couple of years ago. I feel like it's something Manor, but yeah, it's always like the upper class in Victorian England, moving into with like the middle class. Oh well, he's a lawyer, blah blah blah. That's disappointing. And so this was like an upper class thing. And then in the 1950s in America, when we had so much prosperity, which is, by the way, a very, very big anomaly in the history of the world, when that occurred, then it became a thing that middle class families, hey, maybe even working class families didn't have to have their wives work. And we've set that as like this sort of standard, and it wasn't a success. It wasn't a success. Women weren't happy, which is why they backlashed against it. They got bored, okay? But bigger than that, it's just not reality. There has always been a division of labor, okay? There's always been a division of labor, but there's never been this sort of absurd thing like women, like you're a good man if you make your woman sit in her ass all day. I don't fucking want that. And I frankly think if your woman is very capable and she enjoys other things, then let her do what she wants to do with that. But the most important thing is that the family and the relationship are nourished. That it's nourished, right? And Vivian, to your point, most women really do want that. Like the vast majority, 9 out of 10 women, what they care about most of all is their family. And I found that for most women, what is best, especially during the early years of a child, is part-time work. They have the early years is only their kids, and then they do part-time work, and then maybe later on they go back to full-time or something, or volunteer or whatever. I'm all about choice, but let's be honest that most women, if they weren't pressured from propaganda, would choose to be with their families. So that was a long answer. I'm going to answer Rudy's question, and then we're going to go with this. What does it mean when my girlfriend is mad at me and I feel like she wants space to work through emotions after I apologize, but she still wants me to spend the night and sleep over? Well, she just wants connection to you. I mean, she's arguing with you. She's pushing against you because she wants to feel closer to you. I mean, that's why people argue, right? People argue so that they can connect. They don't know how to connect. Arguing is poor communication. That's what it is. That's all it is. I think among men, it can maybe take on a slightly different flavor, but generally speaking, that's exactly what it is. And definitely among men, because men are particularly worse at communicating emotions. So and she's mad at you, and she wants space to work through emotions after you apologize, but she wants to spend the night to sleep over. Yeah, she doesn't want to be isolated from you that long. And by giving her the space, because of her attachment pattern, she comes right back to you. So yeah, guys, I guess I would rather not spend the night when she's still very obviously upset about what happened, and being around her is overall unpleasant. Okay, so you're saying she hasn't gotten over it. Well, then, just tell her the truth about that. I mean, I know she will maybe make her more upset, but you have to protect your own energy, and you don't want to encourage her to. The thing is, what's happening is, if you are spending more and more time around her when she's in a bad mood and she's attacking you, okay? When she's attacking you, or when she's pissed off and she's unpleasant, then she's harvesting your energy. And so that's just a very clear boundary right there. You just have to create. You have to create the boundary. Say, look, I want to give you space to work through these things. You're not, she's not in a good place. So when she's ready to connect with you again in a healthy way, then you're there. But when she's not, that's it. So anyway, guys, that's it. Good having you on, and I will see you next week.